Hello there, and welcome to the Lore Hangout. We've taken over the dev chat that's normally scheduled at this time. I'm Doug Seacat, senior writer in continuity at Privateer Press, and joining me is Josh Colon, who's one of our contributing writers, as well as a man who has had many hats, one of the masterminds behind No Quarter Prime, as well as currently the social media. Is it manager?
Manager, sure.
Director?
That'll work, whatever.
And we're here to talk to you about many things, most particularly darkness and Oblivion. Mm-hmm. But before we get into the dark times, a few announcements just to cover.
Some housekeeping.
Wanted to talk to you guys about the stream schedule. Things are a little different this week. Normally, this would be the dev hangout at Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Get Your Paint On is usually Thursdays at 10 a.m. It's not going to be on this week since everybody is gone. A lot of people off doing convention stuff. We're going to be having the next monthly staff showdown on April 12th at 10 a.m. And then the next Primecast Live is on April 19th, also at 10 a.m. So that's where we're at with the stream schedule. Also wanted to let you guys know that Lock and Load tickets are on sale right now. I think they have been going pretty fast, so be sure to buy those. The earlier the better. And so as a reminder, Lock and Load is June 21st to the 23rd. But yeah, go to pplockandload.com. Make sure you get your tickets. The other thing to mention is our mini crate offerings. So we have the Ancestral Guardian Angel, which is there until April 19th for those who subscribe. We also have the L5R mini crate of, it is Bayushi Shoju of the Scorpion Clan. And that's just till April 5th, which is coming right up. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And for those who do a 6-month subscription, I believe, we have the Bride of Arcadius in our VIP subscription level, which is available till August 19th. And that's where we're at with that. But now let's talk about darkness, Josh.
Okay, I'm all in for really cheery topics today.
So a lot of people are gone for the convention.
Right.
That's allowed us the liberty to maybe speak with greater freedom.
Some candor.
Some candor that would normally be the case.
Yeah.
This might be one of the last times we can speak so openly of some of these topics once our masters are back in the building.
Right.
One thing that I wanted to address real quick while we have that freedom is the notion that the Oblivion writing has been tough. It's been strenuous.
Absolutely.
We've been asked to write many dark and horrible things.
Yeah, very grim and depressing.
Yes. Normally I really enjoy my job as senior writer. I get to kind of take on some of the heroic adventures of our characters. We get to see kind of the triumph of light over darkness.
Right.
But one thing that I feel like I've learned in the process of working on Oblivion is just how deranged and crazy those who give us our orders are.
That's true.
Those who are in charge of this place are not well in the head. And I think that's been proven repeatedly by the sadism they have shown subjecting the setting to many indignities.
That's true.
Which will be happening in the course of Oblivion.
Right. And beyond.
And I feel it's important that everyone understands that it's not my fault. I've been asked to write certain things. It's not my fault. It's not Josh's fault. We are but minions.
We've tried our best.
We've tried our best.
Yeah. We've tried our best.
We've tried our best to mitigate the madness. But not always successfully.
Not always successfully.
So, one of the things that we wanted to talk about a little bit today has to do with infernalism, and we've talked about infernals a lot. We've talked about soul goo.
Right.
We've talked about what infernals are.
Right. The pacts.
The pacts they make, but it's still all kind of unfamiliar to a lot of our people who might be interested in the infernals, in playing them on the tabletop. They have some exciting rules. But I think there's a lot that's still yet to be understood about them. And one of the things I kind of wanted to get into a little bit today is what makes somebody turn to infernalism.
Right.
And there's some obvious answers, there's some less obvious answers, and we'll have a chance to kind of explore some what-if territory. And one of the things I kind of wanted to get into was, there's the obvious course of infernalism, which is one of the things we've shown the most directly is people that are interested in magic.
Right.
Spellcasters, arcanists, they might turn to infernalism just for greater power. That's
Right.
kind of like the simplest
Right.
motive to become an infernalist is.
And that's the bread and butter of the Infernals, right?
Right.
Is dealing with magic users and
Yeah.
increasing their power in some way, shape, or form.
Well, and we've kind of suggested that, the ultimate goal of the Infernals is to get as many souls as possible.
Right.
Like souls are a currency to them. It's something that they value above all other things. It's basically their equivalent of wealth.
Right.
And so, if possible, they want to get as many souls as possible, seize them, turn them into horrors, things like that. But we've also talked about in the past the fact that souls aren't all the same.
Right.
We like to think that every person is equal. But in our setting, that's not always true.
Right.
Some souls are better than others.
Right.
Especially
Of a magic user. Right.
souls that are powerful.
Right.
And so there's various ways that you can be powerful. And one of the most, the easiest things that you can point to as far as a powerful soul is somebody who can do magic.
Right.
And so infernalists, infernalism is most attractive with spellcasters, but that's not the only place where it can happen.
Right.
But it's the easiest sort of lure to provide. Is like we kind of have talked about. I think I talked about in the last Primecast that there's some sort of hooks from the Infernals, even in magic itself. Like runic magic, at least among the humanity, is rooted in glyphs that might be traced back to the ancient runes of Mord that were possibly given to the Mordic lords by Teldequorin,
Right.
one of the great executor infernals. And so there's kind of this inherent link between human magic
Right.
and the influence of infernals.
Right.
But at the same time, that doesn't mean that every spellcaster is an infernalist or anything like that. Like we kind of joked about the fact that it's sort of a backdoor. But for me, the most important concept in that is the idea that spellcasters, in having the gift, in being able to cast spells, are potentially vulnerable to infernal manipulation. And that doesn't mean they're going to always win, but like they kind of could. We have. One of our infernal masters is the whisperer, in the darkness, and so the idea is they could be sending you dreams, they could
Right.
be sending you temptations that you don't even realize is them. They can be
Right.
making these offers that for greater power, and not everybody's going to be vulnerable to that. But that's kind of the easiest bread and butter way to turn somebody into an infernalist is like, especially let's say you're not very good at magic.
Right.
Like it could happen. We
Right.
don't tend to focus on these characters. Like we have a lot of superheroes in the setting. We have, characters that are really powerful, like Nemo, who can just call down lightning and
Right.
obliterate anybody. With his will, he's been fighting in the military for decades. But not everybody is like that. Like you got to imagine there's some guy who can barely, like he's got the gift, he's got magic, but maybe he can just make a spark.
Right.
Like,
Right.
or he can, ignite a candle.
Right. Or move a pencil across the table.
Yeah, move a pencil across the table. Still magic.
Yeah, it is.
Not everybody can do it, but maybe you're not as good with the magic as other people, or maybe you just don't like reading.
Right. That's true.
Like I've run into writers before that don't like reading. I mean, it's a strange thing, but occasionally you have people that just don't like
That's true.
the studies that
true.
are required. There's a lot of reading, a lot of books, a lot of them are boring. You got a lot of charts, you got a lot of these runes to memorize.
Right.
So if you can have a shortcut, the Infernals can take advantage of that.
Right.
They're like, hey, you've been wanting to do some magic. Let's get in there, give you a shortcut, give you some power, but there's always a price involved. Right. And so one of the important concepts with the Infernals is these contracts that they want to sign with people. And basically the ultimate end goal is always souls. We want souls from people delivered to us, but but sometimes that process isn't one-to-one. It's not always as direct as that.
Right.
And one of the things we wanted to explore today, like I think you even brought up as a question to me, like how does infernalism work with somebody who's not a spellcaster? You don't have the gift of magic. How can you contribute to the infernal gods? That's not exactly how you put it.
Right, but what benefit is there for someone who isn't a spellcaster?
Right.
What can they ask for from an infernal, right?
Right, and one of the ideas that we had a chance to kind of explore as we were looking into Oblivion and kind of talking about this imminent infernal invasion is the idea that they've got infernalists in a lot of places that maybe weren't suspected. Anybody in a position of power or authority could potentially be useful to the infernals. Could be helpful in manipulating events that'll work to their advantage. Maybe you could set up a situation where you're not directly offering souls to the infernals, but you have something else to offer.
Right.
And in the long run, they're going to get souls out of it. Maybe you're allowing them access to something else,
right.
or you're fulfilling the promises made to a powerful infernalist. In order so that he can deliver the souls to you. So you can kind of set up these sort of like these tiers of control and influence that the powerful infernals are able to manipulate. The curators are sort of the bargainers among the infernals, and so the idea is like I might not be a spellcaster, but maybe I don't know. I'm a government officer,
right.
And some infernalist somewhere has asked for his nephew to be set free, even though he's like a murderer who's in prison or something like that. So maybe the curator comes to you, makes you an offer as a government officer. You let this guy go, and I will grant you a boon.
Right.
Maybe I'll let you become a spellcaster. Maybe
right.
I'll give you something else that you want.
Right.
And so then that way you can kind of set up these like tiered arrangements.
It's a pyramid scheme.
It's a pyramid scheme. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I think that one of the things that this kind of brings to mind is that there can be subtle corruptions, subtle ways for the infernals to kind of do what they do. And I think it's kind of an interesting thought experiment that we can kind of play with here a little bit today would be to look at some of our characters, some of our heroes of the factions,
sure.
and try to figure out like what would be a hook that the infernals could have to turn somebody to the dark side.
Sure.
And I do think that this is a process that can happen in stages. It's not like an infernal comes to you, you're immediately necessarily converted.
Right.
Start handing them hundreds of souls out of nowhere. It's much more likely that they come to you in like a moment of desperation, a moment of your
weakness.
need, a moment of weakness, and maybe they solve a problem for you.
Right.
And you agree to some kind of concession.
Right.
You kind of open that door of, I'm willing to do a favor for you if you do something for me. And so I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk a little bit about what it might take to corrupt or turn some of our characters. And this
sure.
is just hypothetical. Not saying these characters are
right.
being turned.
Right.
But like we all have our beloved characters in the setting.
Sure, our favorites.
And for example, you, Josh, I know that one of your favorite characters is Dartan Vilmon.
Oh boy, here we go.
The paladin of the Order of the Wall. And so I'm going to challenge you, like right now, what would it take for Vilmon to become an infernalist?
This is fun. This is real fun. I'm really enjoying this one. Man, I hate this. Okay, so I mean, real talk. Obviously, it might be something as simple as trying to say if he feels like the harbinger is in like dire peril.
Okay,
right?
you'd consider that to be kind of one of his primary
like weaknesses.
Or not even a weakness. It's like where his heart lies, where his the thing that is most important to him.
Right.
You would consider to be the harbinger.
Right.
So that's the thing you would want to target.
Right. I think it's definitely like for him it would ultimately be a moment of self-sacrifice in some way, shape, or form, right? Whether it's the harbinger or someone else. Like if there's something he feels he can't personally do something about, that might be the way the Infernals can get to him.
But look at this image. We have this image of Vilmon with his glowing red eyes. Wouldn't you say that doesn't it seem like he's already sort of
that's his inner
becoming
fire.
fiendish as we watch?
That's the pure fire of Menop coming through him.
Okay.
That's nothing evil. So look at that censer, his firebrand, his giant firebrand is glowing too. No, he's definitely pure. It's everything's great.
You don't think he's just like murdering people out of some kind of desire?
No, not at all. No, not at all. He's protecting those paladins. Look at those poor other paladins. He's got to keep his boys alive from the Iron Fangs outside the frame.
But he does kill people.
He does kill people. Just doesn't like it. He doesn't like it, but he's very good at it.
He's very good at it.
He's very, very good at it.
Sure. But would now? I guess I kind of sprung that one on you a little fast.
You did.
I know it's making you uncomfortable.
I hate this. Why would you do this? Why would you do this to your poor co-host?
But the notion is, like Vilmon would be probably a hard target. Like this is somebody that would not be converted easily to infernalism.
I would dare say no. Yeah, I would dare say he would die before doing this.
But what if he didn't know? Like, what if he thought he was serving Menoth, and some, some emissary appeared before him that seemed to be the creator of man.
There's nothing worse than playing this what ifs with the literal writer, because you can make this happen, right? If I say the wrong answer and it works out well, and if it works out well,
sure,
you might make it happen. So I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say absolutely not.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Oh, look at you! You're already yielding. No, I do think that the Paladins of the Order of the Wall represent a point of light in our setting,
sure.
Even within the Protectorate, which you're a big fan of. I know you love the Protectorate, but you've always been drawn more to kind of the good guys within the Protectorate, and the Order of the Wall represents kind of hope, and they stand against the darkness, the greater darkness. So that's definitely sort of a worst case scenario.
Right.
But we do have some characters that I think it would be a lot easier to imagine. Going over to the Infernals, the one I always think about is Lord Arbiter Hexeris.
Hexeris, yeah.
And so, when we talk about somebody that loves arcane power and is almost willing to go for it at any cost, it's hard to imagine anybody more into that than Hexeris. So, this is a character that it feels to me could be pretty easily tempted.
Yeah, I mean, that's a character that has always, even within a Skorne society, has never been afraid to explore the different aspects of magic, right? He was kind of like a patron of poor deceased. What's his name? What was his name? The warlock that got eaten by the Devourer worm.
Oh, right.
He was a patron of, and who was doing void spirit, experiments, right? So. I don't think anything's off the table for someone like Hexeris, honestly.
Yeah, and we've kind of
Mordekar, thank you.
Yeah, for some reason I just kept thinking of Arcadius, even though I knew
that wasn't the name.
Yeah,
Mordekar.
Poor Mordekar.
R.I.P.
So
Mordekar.
easily forgotten.
R.I.P. Mordekar.
Maybe eaten by the Devourer worm.
Yeah, forever and ever. Never seen again.
But yeah, I mean the evolution of Hexeris has been kind of interesting in the scope of the fiction, because basically we kind of had him start from a fairly strong place mystically, he was already a master mortithurge, but we showed that he was immediately interested in expanding the scope of his knowledge. Like he had mastered what the Skorne considered to be their magic.
Right.
But that wasn't necessarily enough for him, and we've kind of shown some interesting encounters between Hexeris and taking one of the scenes I really remember vividly writing, because it was disturbing, was we have a scene where he's basically torturing a trollkin to death to see what happens to his soul.
Right, and he I remember that one because he demonstrates what happens to a normal soul, and then he says that notice how the soul of the trollkin goes back to the earth.
Right.
And that was what was very fascinating.
So you have a character who's already kind of almost. He is inhuman because he's Skorne, and the Skorne have their own sort of beliefs, their own honor, and but Hexeris is just fascinated by souls and where they go. The fact that the Skorne souls pass into this hellish void, in the afterlife, and he could see tangibly, in an experiment that's a sort of a twisted, dark version of what the Strange Light Workshop does.
Right.
He could see what happens in that transition between life and death, and saw that the Trollkin, something very tangibly different happens to them.
Right.
And in our cosmology, we talk about the idea with the Trollkin that Dunia embraces a soul after death, and then it's reborn later.
Right.
They sort of have this reincarnation cycle, and it kind of takes them out of the normal soul process between Cain and Ur-Cain.
Right.
And so Hexeris is totally into that. He's digging on it, and we've shown the fact that like he's interested in magics other than what the Skorne have done. Like we've joked before about how it would probably, like he would love to have like a little meeting with the Lich Lords, and talk about necromancy.
Yeah.
He's collecting arcane tomes, but like the Infernals could give him such a shortcut.
Right.
But it does come with a price, and that's one area where I do think even like a character like Hexeris, is he going to be willing to give up some of his own autonomy to serve the Infernals? And I'm not sure if he would. Like it's one of those things. Like I think at the very least you would see with Hexeris a strong negotiator. Right. Like he's somebody who I think we've suggested that there's certain historical figures that have managed to create fairly strong contracts that have not undermined themselves. And the best example of this is among the Thamarites with Scycarus, who was the first of the ascended scions of Thamar, who apparently negotiated for his own extended lifespan so he could live a couple of hundred years. It's so that he could try to follow Thamar. His whole motivation was, he was one of Thamar's devotees in life and loved Thamar, loved the Dark Goddess, wanted to follow after her, wanted to ascend, but needed more time to do it. And he was able to negotiate with the Infernals to make that happen through extending his lifespan. Now, clearly, since he became a scion, he became kind of almost like a demigod. He probably didn't give up his own soul. He managed to work out a contract with the Infernals that was to his advantage. And how he was able to do that was by offering them a lot of souls. And we've talked about, like, in his mythology, one of the ideas is that Scycarus basically, or Icarus before he became the Scion, offered like entire villages worth of people to the Infernals.
Right.
So the notion is they got way more out of that arrangement, even though they didn't get his very powerful soul.
Right.
And we've kind of touched on the idea in the history that there could have been other spellcasters like Icarus in the time before the gift of magic. It's almost one of the only ways that humans could kind of have magic before the gift of magic would be, call up your local infernal, make an arrangement, deliver some souls.
Right.
Now you're in business. So yeah, I think Hexeris is an interesting case of somebody that it's hard for me to imagine him doing it lightly. He's not somebody who'd be easily trapped, but he does have that ambition. He has that desire for souls. Do you have any other characters that you can think of?
Before we move on,
Yeah.
I think what's interesting with Hexeris, we talked about the Skorne a little bit, is obviously Skorne souls would be of value to Infernals just like anyone else.
Sure.
But it's a little bit discussed in our talks on writing Oblivion, the idea of like where Skorne souls go is different, obviously, than where other places, other souls go. So that might prove to be something interesting and different for Infernals, right? Like there's some connection between, and we get into it right now, but Infernals and Ur-Cain kind of thing, and like I think I'd love to see a character like Hexeris and like a Skorne character in particular fall down that path. We may not ever see that happen.
Sure.
But I would love to see that, personally for me.
Well, yeah, and you could say that, from a kind of a pragmatic Skorne mystic level, they know that their souls are going to a bad place.
Right.
So, is it so much worse to deliver those souls
them,
to the Infernals?
It's true. It's true.
In theory, you could take the Hungerford attitude, which Hungerford would rather embrace Oblivion rather than go to a afterlife where he could potentially face, things that are worse than death.
Right, or become a rock man for a few centuries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, if I could definitely see the temptation there, especially if you've maybe committed certain heresies, or the extollers have a beef with you, like you already know you're not going to be preserved in the afterlife. Maybe there's another route for you. That maybe the Infernals could offer you something akin to immortality in exchange for betraying your own kind.
Right. But as Matt Getz on chat, hi Matt, says, giving your soul to the Infernals is not Hokusune. So
That is very true.
That is very true. There's
But
no
not
honor.
all Skorne are equally devoted
That is
to
true.
the Hokusune code.
And what's a slave going to do if he's getting a chance to
Yeah.
get out? I mean, why not?
Why
right?
not?
Why not?
That's one of the Infernal's favorite phrases.
Why
Why
not?
not? And so another character I kind of wanted to talk about that seems like a character that would go to Infernalism very easily, but we can kind of discuss how that might not be the case, is Fiona the Black.
Of course.
One of our great pirate, privateer casters, one of our few brazen Thamarites.
Yeah, just out there, just living.
She's not
loud and
disguising
proud.
it.
Yeah.
She's got like the Turnian brand like on her armor.
She was Thamarite before it was cool to be
Oh yeah,
Thamarite.
absolutely. Yeah, she's just sailing around, doing Thamarite things, killing people,
Right.
messing with their souls. Like, what would be your take on Fiona as regards Infernalism?
Well, what's interesting with a character like Fiona is that being a Thamarite, right? There's like from Morrowinds and Menites and just the common folk, they would see her as being corrupted already to a certain degree, right?
Right. She's doing black magic already, right?
Right. But in the teachings of Thamar, ironically enough, and as we talked about this before, there are rules about how to deal with infernalism, and there's kind of codes to avoid corruption, right, with infernalism. So in a weird way, she would be the hardest to corrupt in certain ways, right?
Well, I don't know about the hardest, but
Right.
but there are some ways that I think that a truly dedicated Thamarite is actually not a good target for infernalism. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of interesting stuff going on between infernalism and Thamarite worship that is counterintuitive,
Right.
and that might surprise people who haven't looked into it very much. And the truth is, that's kind of how we set it up in the setting, is like Thamar is given a bad name.
Right.
She's given a bad rap
Right.
in the setting because Morrow and Menite are the Morrow and Menoth are the dominant gods. Their religions are the dominant religions.
Sure.
And so Thamar is considered a corruptive element in herself.
Right.
And she is, in theory, advocating any shortcut to power,
Right.
to self-empowerment. And so, like, from the standpoint of a lot of pious Morrowans, they basically think that Thamarites are equivalent to Infernalists.
Right.
Like, it's kind of taken for granted. If you're an Infernalist, you're probably a Thamarite. And there's some reasons for that. I mean, it's not completely untrue because her ethos and her religion focuses on trying to seize more power, that it does make them vulnerable.
Right.
And I'd say, especially if you're a casual Thamarite, if you're someone who isn't really like paying attention closely to her actual teachings, it seems like a no-brainer. You're like, okay, she tells me I should get power.
Right, just
I
do
should,
it,
I
yeah.
should become more powerful.
Yeah.
This Infernal is offering me more power. Boom.
Right.
There we go. Sign the contract.
Done.
Here we go.
Done.
But as some of our viewers have talked about, the Thamarites are, as Dorian Clampett points out, anti-authoritarian. They're also anti-tyranny, other than maybe their own tyranny.
Right.
I mean, there's a fine line there. It's okay sometimes for you to be a tyrant, but you don't want to give up your own freedom.
Right.
And one of the core tenets of the religion is the self is more important than anything else, and you need to preserve the freedom of the self. In fact, they consider the teachings of Menoth and of Morrow to be chains, to be in a form of imprisonment. And so the problem with infernalism is that's another form of imprisonment, like when you get right down to it, unless, again, you're really good at negotiating a contract like Scycarus is, which is
Right.
hard to do.
Right.
The Infernals are really good at negotiating the small print, and you got to make sure you read those contracts really closely. They're like the end user agreement, from
Read the
from
fine
hell.
print, yeah.
Yeah, and most people just say agree. They're like,
Yeah.
I want to check out what's on this website. I accept. If you do that with the Infernals, you're gone. But like if you're a Thamarite, like you don't want to give up your own freedom to this other power. And in fact, Thamar doesn't want you to give up your soul because she, her hope is if you're a Thamarite, if you're embracing her philosophies, ultimately your soul will fall into her domain in the afterlife.
Right.
So she wants you to pass on to Urkane. Come hang out in her domain where it's supposed to be pretty nice.
Right,
like
come
there's
party.
there's a lot of good things to do. There's a lot of parties. All the
Yeah.
best people are there.
Absolutely.
That's not going to happen to you if you've signed over your soul as an infernalist. And one of the things that's kind of important to keep in mind is how rare it is to escape those clutches. Like the way one way that you can think of the infernalists and their contracts is kind of akin to like the mafia or something, where like it's really hard to get yourself out once you've become indebted to them. Right. And so it's one of these things where they'll be increasingly preying on your needs in such a way that you're slowly giving up your freedoms. Right. And then they've got you. Right. Like once you go to a certain extent, you'll be in a situation where the only way out of a situation is maybe to give up your soul. And so they're very patient. So they're willing to wait. Like they're willing to kind of sometimes maybe negotiate with you where it seems like at first you've got some really good terms. You feel like you're ahead of the game. But then as time goes on, the next time you're in a crisis, next time your life's on the line, there's that little whispering in the back of your head. Now give up your soul. I can get you out of this. And
they also are learning more about you as you're agreeing to things. So they know which way to pull you, what is effective in making you, follow a deal, versus what things you can avoid temptation from. So, I mean, yeah, it's a scary thing. It's just a rabbit hole you fall down to once you get in with Infernal.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, one of the things that we will have a chance to explore a little bit in the Oblivion material is the ways that Thamarites are actually fighting against the Infernals. And again, even though that seems counterintuitive, even though it seems like they're a corruptive influence, they're corruptive in a different way. Mm-hmm. and in many cases, the Thamarite occultists, the ones who've really specialized in the study of Infernals, are kind of the best weapon against them.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll be seeing that played out in some of the upcoming material, where again, you might it's also easy to blame Thamar for a lot of things, like the gift of magic, which we know was a bargain with the Infernals, that came from Thamar. So clearly, she did open a certain can of worms.
Of course.
And to me, it's one of the most fascinating and cool aspects of our cosmology is that relationship between Thamar, between the twins, and the Infernals, and the fact that they're basically trying to kind of cheat the system. They're trying to like get all the benefits of giving humanity magic without paying
the price.
Yeah. And that's kind of sets the stage for going into Oblivion for sort of the soul harvest that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, not to say, again, to your point, I mean, Thamarites are undeniably important in the fight against Infernalists, to the point where even the other organizations are going to start taking notice. Like, I'm really excited to see how that affects the setting. But as I'm also seeing on the chat, speaking up directly about Fiona the Black, yes, if they offer her an outfit with more skulls, then,
she does like skulls a lot.
Then, yes, she'll fall down 100%.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely. The Infernals also have a sense of style, a little panache.
Oh yeah.
And that's important to evil organizations, across all realities.
They're the best dressed are the bad guys.
you gotta look good, and you have to support your brand.
That's right.
And sometimes that's a Turnian brand.
You gotta beat me to it. That's pretty good.
Not. But yeah, I think it's interesting to me. Like, I do think that Fiona, I wouldn't say she's impossible to corrupt, because she's using that power. She's clearly power hungry.
I'd say it's difficult.
But I think she knows. Like, she's another one. I think she really believes in that freedom. Like, the whole idea with the pirate way of life is freedom from laws, freedom from having anybody that you're answering to.
Right.
And if you get in too deep with the Infernals, that they're going to come to you with questions. They're going to come to you with requests, and you might not be in a position to turn them down.
Yeah.
Do we want to try to answer a couple questions? I know we've got quite a few cropping up.
One that I don't know whether we were done, but we definitely, I've seen it a lot, and it kind of goes back to the gods a little bit.
Sure.
Is the idea of, do the gods have souls? In so much as when it comes to being targets of the Infernals, right? When you're dealing with it being like that, that makes it more of a juicy target, or would that be
yeah, I mean, when you get down to it, fundamentally, one of the things we've talked about, I was joking about it with the soul goo concept, but the idea is all beings have some kind of spiritual essence in our setting, and that includes things like a tree, or a squirrel has some kind of spiritual essence. If you're not complicated enough, your spiritual essence is simple and less dense, basically. So like you might not have as much spiritual essence in like an ant. It's both small, not necessarily very complicated, but like an ant hive might have more spiritual essence.
Right.
And the cool thing about souls, which is what happens with our intelligent beings, is you have a really dense, powerful knot of soul energy that also has the potential to grow.
Right.
And that's one of the most important parts about mortals in our setting. That's most, it's embodied best through Thamar and Maro, the twins. They actually became gods. They
Right.
were mortal, now they're gods. So to me, that kind of answers the question: Do gods have souls? In a way of speaking, they do. It's almost like you could imagine that the echelon of power between like the loose spiritual essence of a regular living creature, the difference between that and the soul of an intelligent creature. Then you have another jump to the super powerful essence of a god.
Okay.
And the other thing that's interesting about both Infernals and the gods is they're existing in a spiritual realm. Cain is described as the realm of the dead, but that's kind of rude. It's also the realm of the gods.
Sure.
It's not everybody's dead.
Not
there.
everyone's dead.
And where the Infernals are from is also supposed to be this weird, otherworldly spiritual place. And in Oblivion, we have a chance to kind of get into a little bit of a sort of overview and description of where the Infernals themselves came from. Right. And there's some ways that there's some strong parallels between like the eldest primal gods and the Infernals. They're both intense concentrations of spiritual energy that came to being in a spiritual realm, and then can control reality, can affect others, and what we see is a special relationship between Cain and Cain, between the gods and the living. There's this whole like almost ecosystem between the two that the Infernals are somewhat outside of.
Right.
They're not part of that process, but they're able to exploit it. And so I do think that gods would be a great target, but I think they're also dangerous. Like the idea is they exist on a level of power that is very hard for the Infernals to grasp. Like, but yeah, absolutely. Like I think if the Infernals, could like, let's say there's a weakened goddess
Sure.
who's lying somewhere.
Who's just lying there sleeping.
Maybe sleeping.
Maybe her brother is like in some ice or something.
Nearby.
Whatever.
Like
whatever.
And she
Hypothetically.
seems vulnerable.
Yeah.
That would be a good target.
That'd be a
That's
very
something
good
you'd want to get a hold of. But I think in the case,
Don't have to worry about that. It's fine.
in the
Everything's fine.
case of a god,
Everything's fine, guys.
But it's worth noting, we do have an example of weakened gods with the surviving gods of the divine court. Right. They have not yet been taken.
Sure.
So to me, that kind of suggests even in that weakened, difficult state, where like from an Iosan standpoint, their gods are dying. Like
Right.
they think that Syra has a limited lifespan ahead of her, and that the strain of maintaining her people is killing her. Like it's one of the reasons why the retribution is so angry. That even in that state, the Infernals have not been able to destroy her. Right. And so I think to me, kind of that suggests the power of the gods. But yeah, there's definitely some interesting issues there as far as I do. One of the things I always imagine with the Infernals is them being jealous of the relationship between the gods and their people and these
Right.
souls that they don't even have to, they don't have to work to get them.
They don't make deals, right?
They just pass over, and it's like the gods have it easy.
Yeah.
Where there's just all these souls that are coming in, and they just get them for free.
That's right.
They don't even have to try.
I don't try that hard.
Yeah.
And then a follow-up to that question is then, we know gods about dragons, right? And they're odd
Dragons
things.
are weird.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that I think is interesting, we've talked before about how a dragon, what you would consider to be a dragon's soul, is the Authank.
Right.
It's almost like a crystallized, almost imperishable, solid soul.
Because we refer to it as a soul stone.
It's called a soul stone,
Yeah.
and I mean you can think of it like as a way to make a soul less vulnerable,
Right.
and you could consider that there's some of the other things that we have in our setting that are along that same line, like that are at least kind of parallel developments or maybe attempts by mortals to do something similar. Like, we know that the Lich Lords have their phylacteries where they're trying to protect their soul. In the convergence, we have the essence chambers that have taken a soul and turned it into this tangible thing. Now, none of those are as strong as an Authentic. Like, one of the cool things about an Authentic is how imperishable they are. It seems like the dragons have figured out a way to keep their soul essence pretty resilient to attack,
right.
Other than from other dragons,
right.
or similar types of great expenditures of energy. Like, we showed in the old Monsternomicon 2 with the Chimera that's in the Abyss. We had a dragon that was hit by this massive amount of energy from the explosion of the Bridge of Worlds and changed. So that is an Authentic that was actually damaged. But even there, like, I think the notion would be like, from an infernal standpoint, that's almost like it's an incompatible hardware.
Right.
Maybe, like, I'm sure they would love to absorb, Everblight's essence if they could.
Right.
But I don't think it's easy. It's not as easy as what you can do with mortal souls.
Right.
And I think that we kind of have that continuum of like, they're the most comfortable dealing with these, like, loose spiritual energy with souls. They have a harder time dealing with things like I think the sacral stones of the Skorne are kind of similar. Like, my hunch is it would not be easy for an infernal to directly affect a sacral stone.
Interesting.
Because it's different than, like, a soul cage. Like, a soul cage is like a container for a soul, but you can just pop the cork,
right.
let the soul out. Like, you can use a soul cage as like a container.
Right.
Like, you want to keep 100 souls. In fact, it's the best way to negotiate with the Infernals.
Right.
Is keep a big soul cage, fill it up with the souls of all your friends, and then hand it over to the Infernals.
What about the Kovas?
The Kovas, so that's a way that you could break them loose, but then they become weird.
Yeah.
And
it's like the Diet Dr. Pepper of souls. Like,
we talked about this before with ghosts. Like, there's what are basically transformed souls that have kind of become something other.
Right.
I think that those are potentially things that Infernals could latch onto, but I think it's harder. Again, it's like they've gone through a transformation into something different that is harder to interact with.
They want souls at peace. They want, like,
or they're souls, at least a little bit. I just think it's easier.
Right.
Like if you're going to expend your energy in one direction or another, like, it's easier to work with, like, somebody who wants to sacrifice 1,000 innocent people, rather than to try to, like, grab a sleeping goddess in the center of Isles.
The Fane, that's right. With all the Fane Knights.
It's tough.
Those poor Fane Knights. A couple more, and then maybe we can get back to talk about other characters. We've got, Doug, you mentioned that one of the Infernal Masters is female. How and why do the Infernals become gendered?
Kind of like with the dragons, I wouldn't consider the Infernals to be truly gendered, but we have shown that some of the Infernals do. It's almost like they choose to appear as a certain gender. And in fact, with the Infernal Masters, we kind of set it up to where one of them, Amodemos, is treated as male, has adopted sort of a masculine identity. And then Zadaroth is depicted as female. But then Agathon, has been depicted as a neutral, like, non-gendered
gender neutral,
entity. And so I think that by and large, gender is somewhat of a human construct. And we've shown with the Infernals, especially with, like, the Umbrals, like the Umbral Reavers, we've often shown them in female guises. And I think that's just, it's almost like, it's just a choice.
It's a stylistic thing.
Yeah, it's just an appearance thing. I think it's easier for them to interact with humans when they adopt a somewhat familiar guise.
Sure. Another good question I'm seeing is Vlad's bloodline. Is that tied to infernal magic, or does something different due to the old witch's interests in his family line?
Well, if you ask the Screwtators. So the Screwtators of the Protectorate do think that Vlad's bloodline is tainted and dark, but it's a subject for debate. Like, in my opinion, we have shown in the Zapesky past, there have been practitioners of dark magic. I can't remember his name right now. Is it Ivad the Frenzied? Or I don't know. There's a couple of famous former Khadoran kings when the Cephalyx line had control of the throne that were pretty dark.
Right.
And one of them was a full-on necromancer, was doing dark magic. We haven't shown any of them to be actually infernalists.
Right.
But certainly practicing dark magic, forbidden magic, things that like the old faith Menites would consider to be blasphemous.
Right.
And one of the things that we've suggested in some of the fiction with Vlad is that his family almost has their own branch of old faith worship.
Old faith worship.
He does consider himself a worshiper of the creator of man.
Yeah.
And he considers himself to be a dedicated Menite, but it's not the same kind of religion as even other Khadorans.
Right, even the old faith, yeah.
Even the old faith.
Yeah.
It's closest to that. It's closest to the old faith. It's definitely different from what the Protectorate practices. And that's kind of the nature of our settings religions, is that there's not just one religion, even though sometimes some people want there to be. Like the Protectorate wants to unify all the Menites under a single umbrella.
Right.
But there's still, like, since there was not a single Menite temple that was in charge of everything, you had different kinds of Menite religion in every kingdom.
Right.
Like, you know, your Ordic Menite was different than your Leolese Menite.
Right.
And Vlad's family kind of set up their own sort of branch of Menite faith that allowed for sorcery to be not a horrible thing, because sorcery was really common in the family, and so you got to explain that.
Yeah.
You got to, you know, talk to your priests, be like, am I a bad person because I can light people on fire, or you know, summon a razor wind? Right. And the priest's like, no, that's okay.
Come on, it's okay.
You're fine.
You're fine.
And so the idea is that there are Menites who would consider the Cephalyx line to be blasphemous.
Like Vindictus.
Yes, Vindictus, and that was one of my favorite little confrontations, as we showed when Vlad was captured by Vindictus. You know, that kind of came to the fore because Vindictus is a hardcore scrutator who, you know, very anti the Devourer worm. There's a lot of things that the Menites consider to be bad.
Right.
And Infernalism is just one of them.
Right.
There's many ways you could go wrong.
Right.
If by the scrutator's standards.
Most ways you can go wrong. I mean,
most other beliefs are wrong.
So do we want to go through other characters, or do you want to take questions?
Let's continue with some questions. We got quite a few good questions.
Alec M. Luda asks, is a divine magic user's soul worth more than an arcane magic user's soul?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say inherently that is true, but I do think there has to be, in addition to kind of your pragmatic, like let's say you're an infernal and you're weighing souls on a scale of power.
Right.
There's the pragmatic level of, is this soul more powerful than another one? But you got to also have fun. Right. You got to have things you enjoy as an infernal.
You got to cut loose a little bit.
And you got to enjoy your job. Like if you're corrupting people, it's got to be a little bit more fun to corrupt somebody who's pious. I think.
So that's interesting. So I guess I was going to ask. So like, does that come into play, right?
I think. Yeah. I mean, again, you know, maybe I'm applying too much human emotion onto them, but I do think that one of the from a less, you know, humorous level, I do think that piety is almost as a shield, used as a shield against infernal corruption. A lot of the things that religion exists for in our setting is to try to shield you from these dangerous otherworldly things. Like one of the reasons why religion exists in our setting is to, in theory, to safeguard your soul in the afterlife. Right.
I mean, as stern as Menoth is, there is a pragmatic view to why he's so strict with his followers, right? So they don't get corrupted, you know.
Yeah, and he's providing a safe place in the afterlife, a safe place, safer place than other places. And the idea is, like, the city of man, you know, you could argue, like, let's say you're Hungerford, you could argue it's an unpleasant place. Like, you got to work hard. You still have, like, it sucks to die and you go to the afterlife and you still have, like, a job you have to go to.
That sounds fine to me, but whatever.
But you still have tasks. Like, I need to do these things. I need to make sure that I, like, serve on the wall. But that's all part of having somewhat of a civilization in the afterlife, of having a place where you can be protected from, like, the devourer worm, you know, devouring you for all of eternity. Sometimes that means you got to be weekend warrior on the wall. And the Morrowlands feel the same way. Like, it's okay to serve a little bit, you know, protect. Maybe you have to fight these horrible beasts that are, you know, rampaging against the wall. And so the idea, I think, is that piety in religion is one of the ways that humanity has tried to protect itself from things like the infernals.
Right.
And so when you can grab one of those people, if you can provoke the fall of somebody who's pious and holy, I think that's like an extra win.
Right.
Because maybe you can exploit that to bring in more people.
Right.
And one of our major characters, one of the character solos, I don't want to get into which specifically, but I know that we have at least the backstory of one that is a fallen hero.
Boy.
More than one, actually.
Yeah,
now that I think
certainly,
about it. But you're reminding me. But at the very least, the notion of somebody who is a champion of the faith that has been pulled into the infernal embrace. That's like an extra super good win by the infernal standpoint.
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about darkness and infernalism in this one, man. Oblivion is. Whew. All right, so more questions.
I think Philmon's okay though.
I don't trust you now because you put him up on the thing. And
Sure, we do have a picture of him up on
I'm
there.
really upset. Something from Murdojag asked, if the Infernals are the source of human magic, what's the difference between warcasters and warlocks and their non-human counterparts?
Well, I think that to some degree, Infernals aren't necessarily the source of human magic. Like one of the things, we're kind of getting into semantics.
Yeah, you were talking about they unlocked something, right?
Well, but it seems like semantics, but it's important.
Yeah.
Like one of the ideas with the gift of magic is that it's not like you're setting up a direct pipeline to the Infernals where like all human magic is some kind of dark energy that's coming from a bad place.
Some people think that, right? But
yeah, absolutely.
In
like,
the setting.
Like, especially if you're the retribution of Syra.
Right.
You know, like...
You based your whole thing on...
your whole
spiel.
If your whole religion and purpose is killing human mages, you're going to make that seem as dark as possible. But as far as what we've shown from kind of a broader theological perspective, the gift of magic was more like turning a switch. Right. So it's like now... you can imagine that like maybe Menoth didn't want humanity to have easy access to magic, to be able to change reality by will. And so like only a few people were able to do things that are equivalent to magic back in the old days, like the priests of Menoth. And even then, like I've as we've talked about before, like I was imagining these might not have been spells. This might have just been like miracles.
Yeah, they're like, minor miracles.
It's almost like you're raw channeling divine energy.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the ideas with the gift of magic is now humans can do what other races could do, like that other races, the gods hadn't stood in their way. Like dwarves were occasionally born with the power of magic. It was clearly something that the great fathers were okay with. We have Odom, who's one of the great fathers of magic. Similarly, we showed with the elves, like they were given magic really early.
They got everything handed to them.
They got everything handed to them super easy.
Yeah.
And so the idea is not necessarily that there's a huge difference between human warcasters and arcanists. Don't tell the Retribution that.
No, they won't believe you anyway.
It's one of those disputed things. But from a broader standpoint, if we ignore the Retribution's zealotry, the idea is there might be something different about human magic, but it's not completely radically different. They're still finding a way through mystical processes to change reality as an act of will.
Right.
And one of the fun things about War Machine and Hordes is we get to see a bunch of different schools of magic. They're like almost every faction has a different approach to magic.
Right.
But ultimately there's some fundamentals that are kind of similar, and it's kind of fun to draw parallels between some of our factions. Like we know that like Skorne magic is more similar to Cryxian magic. Right. And there's also similarities between like Tharn blood sacrifices and Cephalyx blood magic. But these are all just different shades of how can I hack reality through an effort of will.
Right.
And so yeah, I wouldn't say that like the human warcasters are channeling infernal magic directly.
Right.
But they're good at it when they get the chance, when the contract happens.
Dan Mirandi asks, given all the competition for souls, where do the Infernals lie in picking order? I mean, I'd probably say they're very good at getting souls.
I'd say it's changing. It's one of the things that Oblivion represents. Like we've kind of shown, up until now, up until the release of this faction, we've kind of had Infernals as like a background specter. Like they're sort of a boogeyman that's kind of on the fringes of the setting. We'd put them kind of in a similar places like the Strange Light Workshop, like these paranormal investigations. Like the notion was that probably most souls were not going to Infernals.
Right.
They're happily being sent on to Arcane. You've got your Reclaimer who's making sure they get there. And so I think one of the things that's really scary about Oblivion and the idea of an actual infernal invasion of Kane is now they can compete. Right. Now they're here. They're making huge deals. They're seizing souls at a much greater volume than was the case before.
Right.
And the only thing that we can really compare it to in the history of the setting is the Orgoth. And there's some reasons for that. Like we've suggested, and it's basically confirmed in Oblivion, that the Orgoth were also working for Infernals, for different sorts of Infernals.
Yeah, their pantheon, apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
Like what they considered to be dark gods were actually something probably akin to the Infernal Masters.
Or just a different order, like you said. Some kind of
a different organization, a competing order. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, a lot of what the Orgoth did makes a lot more sense. Because otherwise it can seem almost like...
arbitrary, and
or just maliciously evil. It's okay, why are you gathering thousands of people
and just sacrificing
them? Like that just seems excessive.
That's true. Come on, guys. Come on. It's wasteful.
And then we show that it wasn't just like ceremonial, like you could have all kinds of crazy murders happening for ceremonial reasons, but like with the Temple Garad, we saw this actual machine, like that was gathering souls. And so they actually had machine mechanisms to like facilitate seizing thousands of souls and passing them somewhere.
Right. And we've established in the setting too that like Crix got the idea for soul cages from like Orgoth.
From the Orgoth,
So it made sense that Asphyxius would like kind of take that to the actual conclusion and find an Orgoth temple to just do that in a larger sense. So
you can almost see that like what the Crix were doing with places like the Temple Garad or other large soul capturing structures is they're using a mechanism for their own gain that might have been originally laid down to facilitate getting souls to their dark gods, to their infernal masters. So anyway, I would say that the Infernals have been diligent and patient and trying to seize as many souls as possible, but they were a little fringe until recently.
Right, exactly.
And then things have gotten real bad for at least for anybody other than Infernals recently with the invasion on Kane.
I want to get to these last two questions because I've seen them a lot like through the chat, but originally from Luke Atkinson, as Grimkin are already transformed souls and not fully truly alive or dead, are there any different processes regarding the use of them by Infernals? Like can the Infernal just like take an like a Grimkin and just like suck him up? Or?
No, in fact, I think it would be hard. Again, like I don't think I would never say anything like a blanket statement like the Infernals can't, because in fact I can't remember exactly how it works in the rules with Grimkin and capturing souls. Like I can't remember if they're.
I think they're some of them are considered.
Some of them are considered fair game, but I think the notion is like. When you get right down to it, it's again, they're in that category of things being harder to manipulate, harder to deal with. And the Grimkin were being unleashed on Kane by the Old Witch as somewhat of an attempt, an abortive last-ditch attempt to get rid of a bunch of Infernalists. Like that was at least part of it, was that part of the Wicked Harvest is to target those that the Infernals might be benefiting from.
Right.
And so I do think the Grimkin are kind of like antibodies a little bit, but I don't think it's an absolute sort of thing, because like if you're talking about an infernal being of power like Zadaroth, like there's probably ways Zadaroth can turn Grimkin into useful. You grab some Grimkin, shuffle them around, turn it into a horror. There's probably some of that's going to happen, even though you won't see it in the rules of the game, because the game's an abstraction. But like, I do think that, especially it being like Zadaroth is supposed to be. I mean, Zadaroth's kind of like the old witch of the faction. You know how like the old witch is like almost like a god that you happen to be able to play on the tabletop. Zadaroth's a little bit like that. Like I definitely think Zadaroth could just like grab a few Grimkin, shuffle them around, and then now you've got some horrors to deal with. Like in the sort of in the fiction of the reality.
Sure.
That would be unbalanced from a gameplay standpoint. So.
And then one I've seen a lot, and this might be our last question for the day.
Sure.
Dorian Clampett asks, do Cephalyx have any interaction with Infernals? And I want to go against it because there's, and that's an interesting question because like the Cephalyx are so, intellectually driven, right?
It's cerebral.
It's like to them, and I've never even really seen it. The idea of a soul almost seems like superstition to them. Like it seems almost like nonsensical in a way, right? Like something that other beings worry about.
Yeah, it's an interesting question and one I don't think we've explored much. And I probably have to take some additional thought on it. But I do think there's a degree to which, like the Cephalyx, the changes that they've undergone to their own minds has probably serves as its own sort of defense mechanism.
Right.
But I don't think that it's impossible for like a Cephalyx to become an infernalist. But
Right.
it's just unlikely.
Yeah.
Because it's like almost antithetical to their
They're
nature.
worried about different stuff.
Well, and their approach to greater power tends to be more like surgical alterations and
Right.
weird things like that.
And they're, I don't even know if technically we consider a lot of what they do magic, right? It seems to be like a psychic component.
It's similar to the convergence in some
Right.
respects, and like both even though we have spellcasters in both the convergence and the Cephalyx,
Right.
internally they don't think of that like as magic.
Right.
And so that kind of, I think that creates some at least some challenges for the sales pitch of the Infernals.
Right.
But maybe there's some Infernal somewhere who's like working on his surgical techniques.
Absolutely.
So he can offer some transplant suggestions and
Right.
some new techniques.
Become the Dr. House of Cephalyx, like the genius House MD of Cephalyx.
But I do think there's similar barriers. It's one reason why, like, we don't tend to focus on. I think it'd be a very fringe case with either the convergence or Cephalyx. Like, you don't see a lot of infernalists coming from those quarters.
Right.
And I think it's just because there's a lot of easier people to approach than
Right.
like a clockwork priest who is receiving the enigmas of the Maiden of Gears.
Right.
So
we're seeing a lot, and Tony mentioned it, we're seeing a lot of questions about Archon teasers, and even on the chat they're asking us about while the Dark Masters are away,
right.
if there's something we can spoil. That's up to you. I don't know if there's...
I will say that I'm almost definitely going to return to the topic of Archons in the near future. I had considered talking about Archons during today's talk, but I thought it was a little premature. Probably going to wait till the next, till the Oblivion CID, which is going to cover some of the other models that the book represents. I will say that there are multiple Archons, and I think every faction is covered by them in weird ways.
Yeah, it's like the term Archon doesn't necessarily it's in the same way as we talk about it in the setting.
Yeah,
right?
I'll say that one of the things that we had to come to terms with as Oblivion was being worked on is sort of the rebranding of the term Archon.
Right.
I was really hoping that we could
come up with
a different term just to avoid confusion, but it's such a good term.
It is a good one.
It's a great term that's been with us since the beginning of the Iron Kingdom setting, where we were first talking about holy emissaries of Morrow. And so we had the host of Archons being a Morrowan concept. And these are, and the truth is it's not actually a contradiction to apply it elsewhere. It's more just like it's a broadening of the term, because the idea is that Morrow was one of the most active gods in sending emissaries to Cain.
Right.
And so now we're seeing maybe new other emissaries.
Right, exactly.
And so these are ways for the gods to interfere in Cain without directly manifesting.
Right, exactly.
It's kind of the closest a god can get to like going to Cain without going to Cain.
Exactly. Ray Nard Miri, does Archon include scions? If we're even allowed to answer it.
They're sort of...
Thamarite Archons, what are you talking That's not gonna... Woo! Just to pick up that book, that's all I want to say.
Yeah, sure. I think you're going to be seeing some fun stuff in the near future. And some confusing weird stuff.
Some stuff
that's hard to explain.
You know what, but
hard to explain.
The nature of reality and all that, right?
And as I said from the outset, we have some crazy masters. We have some crazy people in charge of this show. Not that I will ever be able to say that again.
That's right.
I know there's going to be some punishments coming down.
This will be the last Lorecast for a long time.
Yeah, we're going to probably be in chains soon.
No, absolutely.
But anyways, we're going to wrap this up. I guess I'm supposed to remind you guys about the live stream schedule. We're not going to be there this Thursday with Get Your Paint On, but usually on Thursday we have Get Your Paint On. We have the Dev Hangout on Wednesdays. If they ever let us back on, it might be on a Wednesday. And then we have the Staff Showdown, which is once a month. The next one is on April 12th. And then the next Primecast Live, which is also once a month, where we get a chance to kind of do our pseudo podcast of talking to a variety of different departments. That's going to be on April 19th. And again, if you haven't bought your Lock and Load ticket, please do. It's the best opportunity to come and corner us, talk to us, ask those hard questions that we're avoiding in chat.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Because we deny them in person.
We can still dodge and run away, but
Right.
it's more obvious when we're doing it.
Absolutely.
And so, man, make sure you get your Lock and Load tickets. And that's, I guess, about it. And we're out of time. I could just talk here all day, but I like this chair and I like the fireplace.
Yeah, the fireplace.
So hopefully the fireplace will return again.
Hopefully
in the
we'll
near
return
future.
again.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you for attending.
Thank you.